Hey everybody. You know that this channel is largely geared toward life as a disabled person. I am needing to prepare some things about my house, partly because this is the first time that I've had to do that since I moved here a few years ago, and things have finally calmed down. However, I have my back is out completely because I did just the most minor amount of yard work you could imagine because like a month ago because handy people don't show up. So um it felt good to be outside. It was nice to be outside and not get poison ivy and be in the sun and so forth. But my back is completely trashed, even though I did almost nothing to it. So I'm going back and forth right now between being in bed full time and the pain that brings because when you're not doing any weight bearing, your back gets really weak, and then when you get up, things are just kind of fall apart versus the getting up and getting a little dopamine in you and moving around, which is better for the body in general. But then you risk moving the wrong way and tearing things further. I think I have torn something in my back, and the last time I did that was several years ago, and it turned into 3 years in a wheelchair full time. So I don't want to do that. And so but one of my tasks has been putting a lock on something on a cabinet that is solid wood. I believe it's oak. And I've gotten various pieces of advice at the construction stores that I've gone to. Some better than others. Now that it's done, I realize, you realize sort of which was good advice and which wasn't. Um, but people trying to be helpful. And of course they're, providing their time for you. So we are grateful for for that. But what I ended up with was a big fat problem. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about these three bits. They go on a regular size drill, even though they're quite different sizes, each one from each other, but they all go on a standard drill. Um, this has been the first month of my life that I've ever used a drill, even though I apparently own two of them. I don't know why I own two of them. I barely even know why I own one. So, but anyway, I have a lot of tools, it seems, and um, but I just never used them. And so I'm going to tell you what I have found works and doesn't work about each one of these. The advice you get at the construction stores is going to largely be from people who either have zero idea what they're talking about, but don't have the presence of mind or, the personal awareness to not give you advice. More often, though, people who don't know usually will not try to give you advice at home improvement stores. Thank goodness. They will find somebody for you who will be able to advise from personal experience. However, those people are usually people who do not have active full-time disabilities that they know of, at least, and they're usually not like physically incapable of doing things. That's how they got the knowledge to do what they know how to do that they're telling you. So for those of us who are absolutely weaklings, the advice sometimes doesn't match up. Again, through no fault of anybody's, it just doesn't match up. So I'm going to tell you from the sort of soap opera that I've had over the past 3 weeks trying to get this lock into this cabinet, and ultimately I've spent $67 according to my tracking, just to get a hole and a small lock into a cabinet, which is just a stupid amount of money to spend. And I think I can save you a little bit of that if you ever have to do it. Now, the type of cabinet I've been working with is a file cabinet. And so you may not have quite the same problem, but you could on a regular wardrobe or something. The problem has been that the door is 1/2 inch, maybe 5/8. So it's about this big, but the lip underneath the cabinet that it has to hop into is a good inch. And so the inside, if this is the outside and this is the inside of that file cabinet door, if you just put something that kind of levers up, it's going to hit the frame, that extra 1/2 inch of that file cabinet. It's not going to go in, and I sure don't have anything to groove that out with. And I didn't run into anybody at a home improvement store who knew how to groove that out for me. I can think of a way that you could do that if you had a power tool and you really wanted to spend the time, but you'd have to have a very specialized tool to do something that small, groove that small in. And you'd have to have really good eyes, which I just don't have right now. So I looked and looked and looked and looked for something that would go around that and kind of hop up into it. And what I ended up finding is what's called a combination cam. The cams are the little things that when you move the key, that little piece goes up. That's the cam, okay? In fact, I'll show you one in a second here. So what the one that worked for me, it looks like a little lightning rod. So it goes like here, and then it goes over a little bit, and then it goes back up. So it's kind of hugging its way around that file cabinet. So the frame, that is. But the other problem that I was running into was I really thought it would be perfectly normal and fine to drill a hole into the file cabinet door. Seems like it would have been, right? Seems like a simple thing to do. It was a circle, it was a 3/4 inch, I knew what it was, and I just needed to get that hole made. That's ended up being the most expensive piece of this project. And like, probably if I had known it was going to cost me 70 bucks, I probably wouldn't have done it, frankly. But it is good to have a locking file cabinet somewhere in your house. That just is a good adult thing to do. So this is the first item. This is a Diablo brand bit. This is called a spade bit. And if you've ever had a spade in your garden, which looks like a teeny tiny shovel, but just for your hands, you might understand why they call it a spade bit. So it's just got this point on it, this kind of big, I call it a cone cylinder. And there is, I don't know if you're going to be able to see this because my camera's not that great, but there is threading on that. Okay, it goes around and around. That's been my main problem. I really wanted a bit without this, because while you do need something to anchor into that wood as you're going around and around it to carve that out, this is just too fucking big. Pardon my French, but it's just deserves it. So it's too fucking big. This is a solid 1/8 of an inch, okay? And that's just too much when what you're trying to do is get around and around. It creates tension between this point and this point because you're pushing out on the wood with this. And if you're pushing out on it, it's going to be harder to get in here and do this part. So I think this is bullshit and it's badly designed and it might work for something, but it's not for this. I don't know what this is good for, but don't use it like I did for the file cabinet. It cost me $12 for a set of 3 of these. This is the 3/4 inch part because the construction material place I was at that day had only one type of chisel bit, and this was it. So this is what I bought. They thought it would work well for me. It did not. It locked up my drill a few times, and so I took it back to the store and we tried it on a piece of wood there. And they said, well, you're only supposed to use it for pine wood. And I thought, that doesn't sound right. Like, none of these things say on them only use on bullshit wood, you know? And so I was like, I don't think that's right. It did work on pine wood for this person, but this person's also double my size and probably, 3 times my muscle mass. So back to square one. So what I went to the store today and did was I asked them if just a regular drill bit that comes with every drill, that is the biggest one, which is a 1/4 inch thickness, and it just goes around and around. There's no little, nonsense cone cylinder on it. If that would work, because I said, I'm able to drill everything else with that kind of shape. Couldn't I just do that? I have half of the circle marked out at this point. Can't I just go in there and kind of keep making holes until I have the right hole? Wouldn't that maybe work in a pinch? And they said, and I said, or did somebody not tell me to do that because it's a terrible idea and people have tried it before and it's just not good? Or did they just not think of it as an option? So after talking to the fellow for a while, it sounded like nobody had suggested it because they hadn't thought of it. Okay, fair enough. So I said, okay, well, I have this one. It's a 1/4 inch. I said, my other question is, could I go in with that 1/4 inch, then go in with a 1/2 inch, then go in with a 3/4 inch and diminish that pressure, which makes it hard for a weakling to operate with, Would that work? Or is that a terrible idea? And people have tried it and it's a disaster. And he said, no, I think nobody's thought of it. So, and probably somebody's thought of it, but nobody he's met, right? So this is what I got next. This is an Irwin brand. These next two are both Irwin brand. This is a 1/2 inch. And again, if you're not familiar with drill bits, the 1/2 inch means the diameter of it, of that bit. So from here to here, okay? And what this one has is a teeny tiny point on it. See that? It's a much smaller point. It only looks big because I'm giving you a close up here. It's very small. This is no bigger, no thicker than maybe 3/16. Wait, no. Is that what I mean? I mean just under 1/8 of an inch. We'd have to get into 64ths, I think, which I'm not going to do right now. 3/32 maybe. Yeah, that is 3/32. So it's no more than that, which is a lot smaller than that cone. It's also a lot shorter, okay? The other thing about it is it doesn't have threading on it, okay? There's no little twirly bits on it, which means that you're not going to get it stuck in there. Once it's in, it's a smooth surround, okay? And then you're just going to start carving. The other thing about this one that's totally different than this one, even though they have similar tops in terms of the blade right here, this one has a whole carving mechanism. See the spirally business? This one has no spirally business, okay? So this threading carves it out way better, like way better. Okay, so I ended up did I do this one next? I can't remember which one I tried first, but what ended up working and that I would recommend if you are in the same boat I am. This is your biggest one. Now this does have the annoying cone cylinder with the threading, which I fucking hate and deserves the F word because it's such a pain in the ass. But this is an Irwin 3/4 inch, and this is called, not that I can see anything, this is called an auger bit, okay? That means it has the twirly business, okay? And this business on the top, okay? Whereas this one, I don't remember the name of the type on this one. It was a little bit different one, different name. But it's an Irwin also. And Irwin is apparently a strong middle of the road option. It ended up being the cheapest, but I was told it was not the cheapest quality. It just happened to be the cheapest today at the store. So this one is super cool also because if you look at this part here is a fucking blade, okay? Like it is not messing around. It is your first point of kill, okay? So if you put this in here, this is going to be the first thing that hits your wood and starts carving. It's going to make a way. It's going to start carving out that highway so that the rest of it can go through like this, okay? Now, I did not push quite hard enough, and so when I started hearing smelling the engine get a little bit smoky, you know, I stopped. And then next time I pushed harder. However, these guys at the stores, they say that you have to push super duper hard. I did not find that to be the case. What you do have to do, you have to have your drill on the drill torque setting, which nobody told me until way too late. Hang on, I'll show it to you. Okay. The other problem with this Diablo bullshit is it won't even come out now. So I have to take it to the store. Maybe they'll take it out for me. Okay, so if you see, and again, this is just for people new to a drill. Okay, I was new to a drill, and when I tried to call the store and say, hey, this is all jammed up, what do I do? They didn't mention this to me. I dragged my butt with my bad back all the way to the store, and they were like, oh, well, you have it on the wrong setting. And I'm like, I feel like we could have talked about that on the phone. Okay, so here you go. When you see these numbers on here, those are torque settings. Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but they're settings that I think it's torque. I feel like it's torque. If it's not, y'all can correct me, but people who know more. So hang on. Okay, I'm gonna get that one in there. But if you turn this around, Well, if it would turn, there we go. If you turn it past the 10, sorry, not good lighting. If you turn it past the 10, it's going to get into something that's not a number, but just looks like little spirally thread, okay? See if you can see it. There you go. You can just barely see it there. That's what you want at the top middle. That means the drill torque is ready for you. Okay, that's the strongest torque on the drill. That's what you need if you're going to be doing any carving. So I just want to warn you, not warn you, but tell you things that I didn't get told. So what ended up working is I put this in first. This one went in pretty much like butter. It just went in for me. Okay, it was totally fine. Now, granted, I did have a starter hole at that point because my big, ugly, stupid Diablo bit had gone in about halfway. I had to keep taking it backwards and out, but because it kept getting stuck in the file cabinet. But I had that halfway hole, which also meant I really had to get it done because I had already ruined the facing of the cabinet for anything else. So I put this in, and what you want to do is they say go in real hard. I have not found that to be the effective way for carving, chiseling out a hole. I found, let me see if this will do it for me. Okay, it's actually backwards, but if I turn it on, I'm not going to go like all that. I'm not going to go in hot and heavy. I probably would have to with this bullshit bit right here, but using bits that actually work for the job, you don't want to do that, and you don't need to do that, okay? It's going to be easier on your drill and easier on the wood facing and easier on your hands, weaklings unite, to do it like this. And you're going to see that wood start coming out. And you can go fast if you want, but if you go fast and shove it in there, it's gonna jerk on you, and especially if you have thin wrists or osteoporosis or something, it could be a little dangerous. Okay, so do know that if it gets caught, it's gonna move this first, so you need to be prepared for that. I was a little scared about that, but it turned out like it's very obvious when that's happening, and you just take your hand off the power and and you don't get hurt then. But what you want to do is go ahead and use this 1/2 inch one first, okay? Especially, not really even because you needed to create space, but ultimately because this is a better anchor point. This middle thing that's not the cone cylinder, it's just so much better. Okay, and then once you've got that 1/2 inch, then you don't have to worry about this nonsense, the cone cylinder, because it's not going to touch anything anyway. Okay, and then you're putting this in, and then you're going to go round and around. It's not going to go super fast like you think it's going to go. It's not. But it's going to cut through. See, remember our cool blade piece right here? It's going to cut through that and start just making that diameter for you so that this can go in and do the carving. Okay? So that is what I would recommend. There were just so many things in this process that could have been easier, and that if any of the videos on YouTube were by people who are disabled or weak, as well as being beginners, that could have been more straightforward. So I hope that's helpful for somebody next time you have to like make a hole in something. And for disabled people, especially if you have the blessing of home help, there are things that you might want to keep locked, just because the more people are in your home, the more things could get mislaid, or hopefully not worse, but it could happen. So that's the idea. Now, I did promise you I would show you the lock itself, so I'm going to do that. Since this particular day, walking is important to keeping my back pain as minimized as possible. So please hold. I will bring you the thing. Okay. So here we go. It is called Cabinet Security Prime Line brand. It is U9950. It was crazy hard to find this, okay? And I looked all over the place for an appropriate cabinet and drawer lock, and I bought a dozen of them. This is the only one that works. For the thickness that we're talking about, that needs to deal with that 1 inch issue, you're really going to need the one that says for 1 inch thick panels, para panel de 2.5 centímetros de espesor. So the cabinet and drawer lock, and what I promised you was I was going to show you the right cam. The great thing about this is it has multiple cams. So if you don't need all that I mentioned to you, if you just need a straight cam, it has one, okay? But I don't need that, and mine won't work that way. So mine, I needed this. This is really why I bought that lock, because I couldn't find any lock that was this way. So when the key goes down, it goes this way. But when it goes up, it bypasses that extra thickness of the cabinet frame, which is awesome. Now, I will say there's a little bit of issue with the design with this. It gives you a round bit that is very important because it locks this in place and keeps it from turning around. If it just turned around all day, you wouldn't actually be able to lock it. You need this kind of D shape. It has a D-shaped frame that you put inside, but that D-shaped frame comes with little claws, and ideally it's supposed to go into the hole and kind of grab onto the sides of the hole, but it doesn't really. So what I have found works better is you turn it around, it's flat on the other side, and you just glue it. Okay, I mean, glue it with a good industrial glue. I use that E6000 stuff. It's in a silver squeeze container, aluminum squeeze container. But I used it on my other one. It's great. I wish I could find this in a brass finish because my other one is on my file cabinet is in a brass finish, but I could not find one. I literally only found one on the entire market that was it was the brass finish, and made the mistake of buying it without a match. So they only have the silver finish. But if you just glue that on there, you can't just leave it. You have to tape it on. So tape it with some painter's tape so you don't mess up your file cabinet finish. But just line it up, and you're gonna just put some glue on it. I do it with my fingers, but it does dry you out just a little bit. So if your skin is super duper sensitive, even more sensitive than mine, then maybe you can use a Q-tip or something. It won't, that tiny bit of lint potential will not hurt in this case. You want to put it on there pretty good, and then just tape it up, because if you don't tape it up, what I found is it will start sagging. Gravity will grab it and it will start sagging. You want to really leave it there for 24 hours to really firm up. You probably don't need to leave it that long, but I leave it that long because this threading is sort of cheap. And so when you put this in to that donut that you've glued on, you're going to put it through here. But if there's any glue on it, I promise you that this piece that has to secure it ultimately, that's very hard to use a wrench on later because it's so fucking thin, is going to be very difficult to thread on. I mean, even just with my fingers right now, it's having, well, now it's working fine. But a minute ago, it has trouble threading on because it's very horizontal thread. Okay. I would also recommend that before you put the threading on, just spray this with some WD-40. Just make your life easier. It's not an easy thread to make, especially if you have to stoop down, and you can't see it very well at that angle usually. So just spray it with some WD-40. It'll be fine. Or, the lubricant of your choice. Just make sure it's something that can, that's not going to take up a lot of space. But that's the reason you don't want to put this on until the glue is completely dried, because if a little bit of the glue got on this, you would be super fucked on getting that that washer bolt in there. So I hope that's helpful. I wish I had a video like this to help me make a file cabinet lock 4 weeks ago before I realized it was such a major project. And I hope it's helpful to know a little bit more about how large bits work. Oh, and also for pricing, I told you how much the spade bit set was. That just don't buy it. It's ridiculous and useless. $12 badly spent. These are each, when you buy a single bit, you're looking at around that same price. For larger ones or for, bad priced areas, you might be looking at $20 a piece. Don't look at more than that for sure. But this one was $13 in tax. This one was $15 in tax. So, it ends up right around $15 a piece, one way or the other. So there you go. Hope that's helpful.